All right, so I look forward to all the plethora of information that Rob is going to give us today about backing up our data. Look forward to that. But until then, please make sure your phones or noisemakers are on silent or vibrate so we did not disrupt the meeting. If you would, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, so I will now call upon our Toastmaster, Rob John.
Thank you very much, Dagan. Fellow members and guests, first we want to welcome our guest this evening, which is Milena. Milena, thank you so much for coming this evening. We will have a few questions for you toward the end of the meeting, if you can hang around for that. And if we get to, if we time that just about right, which I think we will too. Tonight's theme, as you heard, is about backing up. And what is that for data? Now, I say a long time ago, and it was a long time ago, there was this comedian, and some of you may have heard of him. His name was George Carlin. For those of you who have heard of him, one of his bits was how we as people, we like stuff. We like to accumulate stuff. We put stuff in our house, wherever we're living. And eventually that stuff gets so big, we got to go buy a bigger house so that we can get more stuff. And we get more and more. And this is a never-ending process. We're never satisfied. We always need more. Well, I want to kind of shift that to the theme, which is backing up data. Now, most of us probably back up our computers, back up our phone information. Where do we do that? How do we do that? Why do we do that? And what specific stuff do we back up? And what stuff don't we care about? For myself, I will back up everything on my computer for maybe one period of time. And then maybe like 3 or 4 years go by. And I'm like, I better back all that stuff up again. And so I back up all the stuff that I did back up again, plus whatever extra stuff I had on top of that. And eventually I find that my storage space, it's not big enough. I've got to buy a bigger storage space. And because of that, that makes me think, what of the stuff that I backed up is important and what's just garbage? What's out there that I really don't care about? Well, the problem is that I don't really know. I just know all my stuff is there. And I eventually run out of space, as I said. And then I think, all right, where else can I back it up? I could go out and get a bigger storage space, right? Or I could back it up to different places. How many of you back up your stuff to the cloud? Okay. Yeah, pretty much almost everybody, right? Now my question is, okay, which cloud do you back your stuff up to? Because the first one I heard of, I guess probably the first one I heard of was Dropbox, right? And I don't even know that you can back everything up to Dropbox. Maybe you can. Maybe it's just photos, videos. But I used that for a little while, and they kept bugging me, you can get more space if you want to pay. And eventually I said, stop bugging me, and I stopped using it. Then you have OneDrive, right? You have all these other places. You have Amazon. Amazon will back up your stuff. Well, certain stuff. But what cloud do you use? How many of you use OneDrive to back up most of your stuff or all of your stuff? Yeah, it's pretty convenient, right? Because you can just grab it from anywhere. Most of your, I guess, things that you actually do things on, like your computer or your laptop, your tablet, most of those things can access your OneDrive. because most of those things will have some sort of app that's Microsoft on there, Microsoft Office, that you can actually grab that stuff. So it gives you that access, that availability. And that is something that is convenient. I know for myself it is. But there's other ways to back things up. And backing things up on the cloud, there are some positives, like I just mentioned, but there are also some negatives as well. And we can talk about a little bit of those in a moment. At this point, I would like to introduce our duty holders for the evening. We're going to start with, and I would ask if they could, duty holders, when you are describing your duties, please come up in front of the stage. You don't have to come up on the stage, but come up in front of the stage so that people that are on Zoom can see you. We can't see them at this point. Hopefully, I can get that fixed in the next section of our meeting. But come up to the front, give your description of your duty, and then go ahead and sit back down. So the first person I want to call upon is our timer for this evening, and our timer is Suleiman. Suleiman, would you please describe your duty as timer time?
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and welcome guests. As a timer, I will be helping the speakers practice expressing a thought within a time frame. My duty is to time prepared speeches, table topics, and speech evaluations during the meeting. The green card indicates qualifying time. The yellow card indicates target time, and the red card is maximum time, after which you have 30 more seconds. For the 5 to 7 minute speeches, I'll show prepared speeches. I'll show the green card at 5 minutes, the yellow at 6, and the red at 7, after which you'll have 30 seconds. For the table topics, each speaker is encouraged to speak for 1 to 2 minutes. I'll show the green card at 1 minute, yellow at 1 minute 30, and the red card at 2 minutes. And once again, you have 30 seconds off. And for evaluators, you have 2 to 3 minutes. The green card is shown at 2 minutes, the yellow at 2.5, the red at 3, and you have 30 seconds to finish after that. If you speak under time or over time by more than 30 minutes, you will be qualified and not be eligible for the awards at the end. However, for table topics, you must reach at least 1 minute. I will report qualifying times when called upon throughout the meeting. Mr. Toastmaster, back to you.
Thank you. Our next duty holder for the evening is our vote counter. Our vote counter this evening is Mr. Dagan Newland. Dagan, will you please come to the front of the stage to describe your duty as vote counter?
Yes, as vote counter, it is my duty to take the votes when called upon, and that's going to be, well, we do not have 2 speakers or 2 evaluators, so we will not vote on that. But for table topics and the big 3, we will vote on, and I will log onto Zoom after this, and for people on Zoom can send me the vote privately that way. And people here in the room, all you do is take out the ballot here, and when we come across the best table topics, you just put down who you think would do the best table topic in the cup. Same with the best big 3, which is going to be our Toastmaster, Rob Giles, our table topic master, John Vessels, and our general evaluator, which I don't remember who it is. Yeah, Tom. Yeah, Tom. So we put those in the cup, and also anybody speaking up here, you can put a comment to them for a speaker as well, and put it in the cup as well, and get that to them as well. And if you're on Zoom, you can, if you want to send a comment to somebody here that's speaking, I will pass that along as well. And at the end of the meeting, I will pass out the awards. Back to you, Toastmaster.
Thank you very much, Dagan. Our next duty holder is coming to us through Zoom. Normally we would see our duty holder up here on the screen. However, I'm having some updates, and apparently my Zoom is zoomed out. So at this point, I'm going to ask Karen, I hope that you can hear us and that you will, at this point, tell us your duty. Luckily, you are eye counter, not posture monitor. Well, maybe that wouldn't matter either, but anyway, please describe your duty as eye counter, Karen.
As I counter this evening, I will be listening for any ahs, ums, or long pauses, and I will make notes and will give my report when called upon during the meeting. Back to you, Rob.
Thank you very much, Karen. I'm glad you were right at the front of the stage too. What do you know? Our next duty holder is our grammarian for the evening. It is Lisa Mitchell. Lisa, will you please come on up and tell us your role as grammarian tonight?
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmaster, and welcome guests. As grammarian, it's my responsibility to pay close attention to all speakers, listen carefully to their use of language and grammar. I'll take note of any extreme misuses of the English language, as well as any clear and exceptional uses. I may also note any interesting words and phrases. As grammarian, it's also my duty to introduce the word of the day. For today's meeting, the word is plethora, which means a very large amount of something, especially a larger amount than you need, want, or can deal with. I'm standing in front of it. An example of that is the report contained a plethora of detail. Each speaker is encouraged to use the word of the day. In order to qualify for a best table topic speech, you must use the word of the day in your response to the question or topic. I will give a word of the day report at the end of the table topics when called upon. I will also provide a word of the day and grammarian reports when called upon by the general evaluator towards the end of the meeting. Thank you. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you very much, Lisa. Our last duty holder for the evening is our posture monitor, Mr. Mark Schroeder. Mark, will you please describe your duty as posture monitor?
Certainly. Okay, so I have one of the more annoying duties because I get to ring the bell when I see something that I consider distracting, taking away from your message. And it's going to be things that you're doing, things that I see in terms of posture. You may be doing things like either the fig leaf, the reverse fig leaf, the T-Rex, or maybe you're doing windshield washers, something like that. If it's taking away from your message, I'm going to ding the bell, unless it's during the prepared speech. During the prepared speech, I remain quiet so as to not disrupt our speaker too badly. And so that's going to be my job as posture monitor. I will have a report of the number of infractions that I see. You'll also hear the bells as I go through this. One other quick thing, as the Zoom coordinator tonight, just to make sure it gets appropriate attention, if you are online, I put into the chat our sign-in form. Please make sure that you go and do a sign-in for us so that we have your contact information. We are not always in this room. Sometimes we get bumped. Sometimes we have to change the Zoom password. We want to make sure that you always have it. And if you sign in, we have your information so that we can do that. And we have gotten 3 of those so far. So we're doing pretty good for tonight. But I want to make sure chat is not always visible to everybody. Make sure that it is, that you know it's there. That concludes my job as the posture bell for tonight until you hear that.
Thank you very much, Mark. Appreciate your help there. That's it for our duty holders. The next thing we'll be going into is our prepared speech for this evening. And I think we have our prepared speaker on there, but we'll get to her in a second. I want to talk a little bit more about backing up our data. And as I mentioned before, we have a plethora of data that we back up. For myself, the thing that I most care about these days is photos. And unfortunately, just like the amount of words that come out of my mouth, I take a lot of photos, and a lot of them are useless. There's a lot of them, but I would say maybe 1 out of 5 is the photo that I like and the photo that I want. But I don't take the time to go through and sift through and go, bad photo, good photo. So I just throw it all onto my cloud. And that's another thing that I have. I have my own personal cloud that I can access. And this way I know I have a little bit more trust that it's going to be there for me. It's going to always be there for me. Someone's not going to come knocking on my digital door saying, we're getting rid of our platform. How many of you have had that happen to you before, that, all right, now we're going to shift how we're going to do our business. We're no longer to store things. this happened to me with Amazon. I threw all the music that I accumulated through my life, I threw it up onto the Amazon cloud. And you could put up there, I think, 4,000 songs or something like that. And then one day they said, we're not gonna do that anymore. So you gotta take everything off by this date. You're welcome to join Amazon Music Unlimited for $125 a year, or whatever it might have been. And I thought, that's it. So I went searching for another cloud and I found one. But that is one of the downsides, is that you don't know when these people are gonna either go out of business or they're just gonna change how they do business. One of the other ways to store things is a little bit more old school, and that's on like maybe a stick, right? A thumb drive, if you wanna call it that. Put it in there, but that can only hold so much, right? And the more memory you get on there, the more expensive it can be. Now, that expense has shrunk over time. As I had mentioned in a meeting, I think maybe a year and a half ago, you can get a little micro card with I think it's 2 terabytes for, I think, less than $100 now. 2 terabytes on a little tiny little micro card. That's pretty cheap, right? You can store quite a bit on that. And phones, you can get up to close to that, especially if you have an Android phone, you can add that memory on there. So there are different ways that you can actually store your information, cloud, whether it's on a stick, whether it's just on a separate hard drive. How many of you use a separate hard drive to add or store things? Something like that. How many of you use the cloud exclusively and that's it? Yeah, that's the easiest. We don't have to worry about getting our own stuff. We feel like it's always going to be there, as I said before. But there's always upsides and downsides. I mean, even my own personal cloud that I have, it's a Western Digital, holds 2 terabytes. What if that fails? So maybe you need to have it on multiple clouds or multiple storage units, right? In order to have your stuff safe. And that's really why we're saving it, is because we want it there for the future. We want it there just in case. My brother had once typed up a book and he was almost done. He almost completed it and it was on his laptop. And one day he set his laptop on top of his car as he was going to get into it. He got in the car and he started driving. And I guess around one turn, there went the laptop sliding off the top of his car onto the highway, smashing into pieces, other cars driving over it. And it wasn't that he lost that piece of hardware, it was that he lost all of that work that went into that book that he was writing. And he pretty much swore never to use a computer again. Of course he does, but you have that feeling of, I'm never going to go through that again. All of that anguish from loss of all of that hard work. It's incredible. So storing your stuff is important, but it's good to store it in multiple places, just in case. At this point, we are going to move into our featured presentations for this evening. This is our prepared speech for the evening. We have one speaker tonight, and this is a special speech. I just want to confirm that our prepared speaker is on our Zoom. Is that correct?
Hello, yes, I'm here.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Jessica. So at this point, I would like to ask Jessica's evaluator, and I believe that person also is on Zoom, Mark Sims. Mark, would you please describe, and this is her icebreaker, so I think that you could probably do this if you haven't received an evaluation form. This is Jessica's icebreaker, so if you would please describe the goals of Jessica's speech tonight, we would greatly appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. And this is Mark Sims calling in from Washington, D.C. And a disclosure to Jessica, in the event that you have emailed me an evaluation form, I haven't seen it because I brought my laptop, but for some reason, it cannot connect to the Holiday Inn Wi-Fi. So when I get back home Saturday, I'll catch up on email. But this is a great evening because Jessica gets to give her icebreaker. We get to hear more about her. And that is the goal of the icebreaker. It's to speak, to talk about what you know best, and that's yourself, and to establish a baseline, to get that first speech out there, see how you did, to see what strengths you had, and I'm sure there would be several, and then to see what you need to work on. And that is the main objective of an icebreaker. And unless I hear different from Jessica, usually the timing for the icebreaker is from 4 to 6 minutes, which goes by pretty fast. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you very much, Mark. At this time, I would like to introduce our prepared speaker for tonight, Jessica. And Jessica, forgive me if I butcher your last name. I apologize sincerely, but Jessica Guadagnino. Guadagnino.
Yep.
Jessica Guadagnino, and I know you can correct me later. With Ice Ice Baby.
Thank you, everyone. Good evening. And Rob, that is actually correct. So kudos to you, as the G is silent. Part of my icebreaker tonight. So good evening, everyone. My name is Jessica Guadagnino, formerly known as Jessica Fulton, as I was married in April of last year in Florida, and that is where I'm from. My love story is unique in that I did meet Joey in high school. And contrary to popular belief, we were not high school sweethearts, but we did meet back in 2014 on the very first day of our Spanish class. And he remembers exactly what I was wearing. I walked in a pink shirt and jean shorts, and he was sitting with his friend, Chris. And so I had walked in, and he had saw me, turned to his friend, Chris, said, "Hey, buddy, it was nice talking to you, but I'm going to go sit with the pretty girl." And so he did. And unfortunately for him, the attraction was not reciprocated or mutual, to say the least. And all through 4 years, we did remain friends. We actually ended up being prom dates. And again, just as friends. And that ended with him actually puking in our friend's bushes after party of a he drank too much Fireball. And so I did my due diligence. I went over, I made sure he was okay. And he was also in the hands of some good friends. So I left him and went back into the party. And that was basically our last outing together. And after high school, I went on to Florida Atlantic University, where I graduated with a bachelor's degree in hospitality. I actually began my hospitality career at an Italian bakery. And I worked as a pastry chef, and then I worked for their wholesaling as well. They had wholesaled their cookies and baked items to Whole Foods, so I helped manage that. And I worked in restaurants and hotels. I was waitressing as well as bartending. And during the college time and after college, I also really loved traveling. I went to California with a group of friends, and I took my mom to Las Vegas when I turned 21. So that was definitely an experience. And at the time, my most recent Las Vegas trip, I went with my friend's mom, who I was living with at the time. And believe it or not, we had gotten into an altercation where she wanted to leave and I didn't. So I said, "Why don't you go and I'll stay?" So I found myself very young and in Las Vegas, which probably at the time wasn't the smartest idea, not the most safe, but I decided to make the best of it. And so I started Googling the most extravagant things to do in the area. So there were helicopter rides, ATV tours, and I decided to go with the latter. And I find it humorous because the tour guide showed up and he was holding a little sign with my name on it. And it was a passenger vehicle of 10 passengers. And so here I am solo. I jump in the van. I turn back at all these, couples and friends. And I said, "The party's here." And it was just a great time. And I really recommend doing that because at the time I couldn't even go to a restaurant, eat lunch by myself. I was so uncomfortable doing that. Another reason why I'm here at Toastmasters, and it definitely helped bring me out of my shell, to say the least. So circling back to the love story, I was posting all these pictures on Facebook, and Joey had seen, and he wanted to go travel somewhere, and his friends weren't available at the time. So he had messaged me, hey, do you want to go travel to Colorado and go skiing? I had never been skiing at the time. And I also stalked him on Facebook, and he was very attractive. And it's gone, and it was Thanksgiving. And I ended up having Thanksgiving dinner with his entire extended family, just as friends. But turns out we ended up being together ever since. And I was living in St. Petersburg. He was living in Boca Raton, and that's about a 4-hour drive. So one of us would make the drive about every other week. And I was managing a food and beverage team at a Hilton. And ironically enough, an event came in that I was managing, and the liked my organization skills and my enthusiasm, my personality. So he said, hey, we want to offer you a job. Why don't you come work for us? And that actually involved moving to where Joey was living. So all the stars aligned. And so we lived there for about a couple of years until we moved here to Dallas, Texas about 3 months ago for a job opportunity in the mortgage industry for myself. And we reside here with 2 puppies. We have a chocolate and a yellow lab, Baxter and Bailey. And that is basically the synopsis of my love story. As far as little fun facts about me, I love playing football on the beach. I love working out, and anywhere being in the sun, anywhere with live music, those are my go-to activities. And I would say my biggest fear, aside from skydiving, which I did do, and I also full-on anxiety attack on the plane. I was crying to my mother. That is not a lie. I have a whole video of it. I would be public speaking. And so I started on my journey to conquer this fear a little over a month ago, and that is what brought me here to Toastmasters. And I want to take this moment to thank you all for listening to my story. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you very much, Jessica. At this point, I would like to get a timer's report. Mr. Timer, did Jessica qualify on time?
Yes.
Excellent, wonderful. If you have any comments for Jessica, log on to Zoom, shoot her a message. If you want to give them to Dagan, Dagan can pass them along. His thumbs will be busy, I'm sure. But you can also email or WhatsApp, whatever you want to do, send messages to Jessica. We really appreciate that you gave your speech tonight, and your evaluator will give you a lot of great feedback. So stay with us. Before we move into the next portion of our meeting, which is our table topics, I want to talk just a little bit more about backing up your data. So one of the other things that you may want to think about with backing up your data is not only is it going to be there and always be there, but is it secure? Can somebody else get to it? And if you're entrusting that to a cloud service, you're entrusting that they're going to get it all right and they're not going to get hacked and everything's going to work out fine. If you are in control of your own data, then you have at least more control, right? However, maybe you don't have the expertise to prevent other people from hacking in. So it's something you have to weigh and think about. Again, for myself, I think having both is probably the best scenario, where you have it somewhere else on a cloud somewhere, where you have at least the expertise, but you don't necessarily have entire control of it. But then you also have it backed up on like a hard drive or a stick or something like that that you can save for yourself and you have access to. At least if you have that, you can disconnect that from the web, from the internet. If it's in the cloud, it's connected, right? Because you have to access it at any time. So it's always going to be connected and you don't know who's going to hack that system. So those are a couple of things that you really should think about. And maybe if you're going to be using a cloud service, investigate some of that. I don't know all the facts. I entrust Microsoft Drive, the OneDrive. I haven't really looked into it too much as far as what their security is, as far as keeping my data safe. Perhaps I should do that, right? But it's something that we all have to maybe rethink and think about where things are going down the road too, as far as data. It's cheaper and cheaper to buy memory. And perhaps we should just start storing stuff ourselves. So at this point, we're going to move into the second portion of our meeting tonight, and that is our table topics portion. For our table topics, we have a facilitator of that portion of the meeting, and that is our topic master. I would ask you to please help me to welcome our topic master for the evening, Mr. John Vessel.
Robert, thank you. Good evening, everybody. Tonight, I'm going to be the table topics master. And the table topics master job is to host the meeting part that deals with extemporaneous speaking, but not too extemporaneous because you only have 1 to 2 minutes. So everybody needs to speak for 1 to 2 minutes. You have to meet at least 1 minute. You cannot exceed 2.5 minutes, otherwise you won't qualify for one of our ribbons if you're the best table topics master. Now, the second part is that you must use the word of the day. It is plethora. Please remember, it'll be up here, and a lot of times we cue it for the audience to remind you to use the word plethora, because we want that opportunity for you to get a ribbon. All right. So those 2 things you're going to have to meet. And now let's talk about table topics. I will call you up here, give you a table topic question, and you've got to speak. So let's just start with Suleiman. Will you time him? Suleiman, what is the first type of backup you learned about and you used?
The first type of,
What the first type of backup that you use and you know about?
like Mr. Drive, is that right?
Whatever. You tell me.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Good to go. So, I've had a plethora of data over the course of my life. I used to store lots of pictures back in the day on my digital camera before we had smartphones. And then I moved on to educational materials when I was in college. So I had a plethora of documents that I had to back up. And now with cloud technology, I have a plethora of notes in my creative output. The first kind of, to answer your question, the first kind of backup I ever learned about was a hard disk. And so that's how I initially started backing things. But over the course of the years, I moved from that to cloud, where cloud seems to be later, as Rob was telling us. And now everything is in the cloud. So all I do is password protected, and I know it's always there. I'm never going to lose it. And actually, I don't know if any of you have used Evernote, but it's the most incredible app. And I feel like my whole life is in there because I use it for everything. And so recently I did like a phone authenticator. Found like if someone gets my password, they would have everything. And so now I do. So anyway, that's kind of my story about backups. But it all started with hard drives. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Suleiman. Well, I want to say that the very first type of backup that I've used, and I want to know who here even knows about what it is, and that's carbon paper. Who knows what carbon paper is? Or who doesn't know what carbon paper is? Really? No, that's cool. You're young. Okay. Hey, it's a thing. So you take this sheet of paper and this sheet of paper, and you put a piece of carbon paper between it. Now, carbon paper is smooth on one side, and the other side it has, let's call it chalk. I'm not even sure what it's made. I would guess carbon is what it is. Some kind of carbon blue. And when you put it in the typewriter and you type, it instantly creates a copy on the backside made from the carbon. And you can usually do like 3 or 4 copies of a letter at one time. Just type the letter once and you got 4 more pages of it. Because in the old days, you know, we were all paper. I mean, that's what those big old file cabinets were. A file cabinet was a physical location where you pulled out a drawer and you stuck it in there. So, that being said, Dagan, have you ever used carbon paper? Have you ever used a typewriter?
First of all, I like your shirt there. Looks like the man.
Rob, you want
You know, back in the day, a long time ago, we used a plethora of paper, and I'm just glad, you know, today's technology, we just put all the information on these little devices we carry around. But yeah, but back in the day, it's like when I was in school. Yeah, I mean, I think some point in school, early, no, I don't remember, not in high school, but maybe in college class, I can't think of that. I'm so old, I can't think of that far back. Anyway. But at some point in school, I used the typewriter. I had to learn to take typewriter class and learn how to use a typewriter. But we didn't use carbon paper on the typewriter. We just used regular paper. Of course, that has the carbon thread in it, not the paper itself. But I do remember, it's like if your credit card got declined or wouldn't work at the store, they'd actually use this little machine and have a little carbon paper, and you had to put your credit card in there and they swipe it over, and you use carbon paper that way. That's the only few times that I've ever used carbon paper. Man, or the thread itself, even to this day, even at work, our registers, the printers, has this thing in it that has this little wound up thing. We got some old school stuff sometimes. Has a little carbon thing there that does certain things on the register. So carbon stuff is still used today in certain situations, especially if you have older equipment at work or anything like that. So but anyway, back to you. Tip talk.
That's the cash register journal that keeps a copy of all your transactions. Believe me, I've done that. I work for Safeway. I used to have countdown registers all the time. So anyway, so we've had carbon paper. Yes, there is still some carbon ribbons and things like that around in our system. A lot of it's done with heat nowadays. It's heat transfer instead of actually having carbons, but you do still have carbon in some things. Now, and that was a good example. In the old days, yes, I'm old. Anyway, he talked about credit cards. In the old days, you put the card in there and put it, you had to swipe it so it physically did an impression of your card numbers on the front of your card. And you got to keep the carbon copy, and they actually had to send the physical copy to the credit card company so that they could bill you or charge you, I guess. So after we got carbon paper, well, we have copiers. Remember copiers? No, I'm kidding. Copiers are still around. People still use copiers. And they don't have a ribbon, they have toner, and toner is what's in them. So let's move on to, let me see, Lisa.
I'm fixated here.
Yeah, you're always micromanaging. Cut it out. Lisa. Okay. So you have multiple devices. Do you back them all up the same way, or do you back up some devices differently than others? And so
So do you have multiple places?
like most of my computers that you have to back up and be backed up all the same way, or
Okay. Make sure I was understanding what you're asking. So, yes, I have multiple devices. We have our cell phones, and then we have computers. So yes, we do have a plethora of devices. We back up through, we have a hard drive backup. My husband is old school and doesn't trust cloud. So we use a hard drive for backup because when I was doing my schoolwork, I freaked out and panicked because my computer crashed and I had a meltdown because I thought I had lost all of my schoolwork and papers. So we went out and bought a hard drive because I did not want to do that anymore and felt like I was wasting time. So he backed everything up on the hard drive to avoid me having meltdowns and him having to deal with that. So everything is backed up on our hard drive instead of the cloud. So that way we don't have to deal with that. So thank you.
Well, yes, I do too. I have multiple computers and laptops, of course, and I work in IT, so I have laptops galore, both Mac and PCs, and actually I have a Chrome one. Biggest waste of money. Anyway, but that's beside the point. But they're usually cheap. Because everything is done, if you don't know Chrome, everything's done on the cloud, so there's not really any space storage to it. There's a little bit, but not enough to worry about. So, Maddie, ready? Okay, so do you trust the cloud or do you back it up some other way?
Thank you, Table Topics Master. Great question. So originally, I used to back it up on a hard drive, and it so happens I randomly have this USB that was rolling around in my purse. And so I think there's data from like 2015 on this, but the point that where I'm going with this is that I now back up everything on the cloud. It's less about trust and it's more about convenience for me. I really am not good at keeping up with these physical type of things. I have multiple hard drives, USBs just laying around with I don't know what's on them, and I don't check them that often. So I have a plethora of information in a plethora of different areas. I am skeptical of the cloud. But that being said, I feel like if Microsoft OneDrive Cloud or Apple's cloud goes down, I'm gonna have a lot more problems just in general. Like if someone's hacked into them, then there's just gonna be a lot of problems going on and it's not just gonna be my data I have to worry about. So I would say that in general, I guess I do trust the cloud because I don't really use these hard drives. So I'm just kind of I have to trust it a little bit, but ultimately it's more of a convenience thing for me. And I just really don't like having hard drives and I'm not good at keeping up with them, except for when I find them in my purse randomly. So that's all I've got for you, Table Topics Master. Thank you.
Thank you, Maddie. Well, my preferred method is Mac. And Mac has an automatic backup feature going on anyway a lot of times. I know probably Microsoft does too, or regular PCs. But I'm backing up, it all automatically backs up and it backs up to a hard drive when I have it hooked up. I'm gonna have it hooked up. Because now I don't work at a desktop so much, I have laptops, so who carries that around? And you can't really find them on computers much anymore unless you spend a lot of money with CDs. I used to, back up all my stuff on CDs because I don't trust the cloud completely either. If it ever fails or your computer ever fails, then you might have a hard time getting back into any of it, especially if the hard drive goes down. And I know what you're talking about. I have my own cloud at the house, Western Digital, and they no longer support it. Not that it doesn't run, but there are going to be no more updates anymore. So it's just kind of a pain, and so I stopped messing with it. So now I go ahead and like to call for a timer's report. Did everybody qualify on time?
Yes, everyone vote right.
All right, thank you. And Lisa, did everybody use plethora?
Yes.
I heard it plethora of times, so. And now if we would take a moment to vote for who you thought did the best job as the table topics. And that is between Suleiman, Maddie, Lisa, and who was Dagan? That table. Oh, online, you can go ahead and send an email or the chat privately to Dagan, and Dagan will make sure that Suleiman gets, no, you're the vote counter, sorry, Dagan will take care of it. And for those who want to know, the shirt is from the BGG Grooming Collection. No. Now it's time to move on to the next portion of our meeting, and that is the evaluation portion of the meeting. And tonight, our general evaluator is Tom Turicki. Tom. How do you do, sir?
Well, thank you, and thanks very much, John. All right, the general evaluation portion of our meeting. So this is a part of the meeting where we learn through feedback, both giving feedback and receiving feedback. And the meeting's set up to create lots of opportunities for us to do so. So first off, let me see. First off, I want to turn it over to Mark Sims. Are you online there, Mark? Mark is our evaluator of Jessica's talk. So Mark, can you give us your evaluation?
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. And thank you, Jessica, for the very fine icebreaker, especially after a day where apparently you had some type of car incident in your garage. That's not very helpful to being in a calm spirit. But overall, I think you did a very, very good job. What I'll do for starters is go over some of the big things that come to mind where I believe you excel. These are definite strengths. I liked it that you managed to cover a lot of substantive topics such as education, jobs, family, getting married, and you did it, cover these substantive areas in not as much in a clear chronological path, but in a type of story that eventually all wove together. So that made it very easy, very enjoyable to listen to. But then also you were still able to give us a lot of information to help us get to know you better. All throughout, I also noted that you used very good gestures. For example, early on, I recall seeing an expanded arms gesture. Also, a couple of times when you were counting out individual items, you did the 1, 2, 3 things. And then there was very good eye contact all throughout. You also gave us some very good details, and it almost helped us to envision the situation, to be there. For example, I think you talked about when you met your future husband, it was 2014. It wasn't just some time ago. You talked about the clothing that you wore when he first noticed you, and it wasn't that you just had something nice on, but it was like a pink t-shirt on. And Joey wasn't just talking with a friend, he was talking with his friend, Chris. So, okay, at one time, we were all in high school, so we were able to envision the classroom scene. So you were able to help put us there. You also used some good descriptive words. Joey didn't get a little queasy or ill, or maybe have a stomach problem. He puked in the bush. Okay, there you go. That was a good, very blunt, very helpful. And then also you didn't simply maybe notice or observe Joey on Facebook, but you stalked him. Again, good, colorful words that really spiced up your speech. And the next section, is where I'm supposed to discuss any improvement items, but what I think I'll do is just skip to the final part, which is here's what you can do to really challenge yourself. Because I really didn't notice any significant or major shortcomings in the speech. But to really challenge yourself, since near the end of your speech, you talked about some prior challenges in public speaking, and I might say I really didn't notice those based on your performance tonight, but apparently you perceived them. Maybe you could have given us a little more detail, like some specific examples on where you thought maybe you came up short, and then give us some specific examples on what you hope to accomplish. For example, we all want to get better in public speaking, but are you wanting, for example, to lead a training session or to give a speech before a big audience, or maybe just give a good professional presentation to your supervisor? And that's about all that comes to mind on ways to enhance and improve on what you did. I think it's a very, very good first start. So thank you so much for the very fine icebreaker. And if you would email to me your evaluation form, again, I will get it in a few days. Mr. General Evaluator.
All right, thanks very much, Mark. Can I get a timer's report on Mark's evaluation? Yes. What was his time? 250? Okay. All right, thanks very much. Okay, normally we would vote for best evaluator, but since we had one, it's you, Mark. Congratulations, another feather in your cap. Okay, at this time, I'd like to call for duty holder reports for all our duty holders. So let's start with Suleiman, our timers report. Oh, no? He only does it for for the speaker. You're right, thank you. All right, Mark, posture.
Thank you so much. I'm going to come up here because I need to be full view for this particular one. I'm going to start off with Mark Sims. And since Mark, you were just on, the one thing, we appreciate the fact that you're here, especially on an iPhone or whatever it is that you're on. The one thing from our standpoint here, we really appreciate no noticeable nose hair. Thank you so much. I'm sorry, I just had to say that one. Jessica, I'm going to ask you a quick question, so be ready. The question is going to be, are you left-handed, right-handed, or ambidextrous? But in the meantime, the one thing that I noticed is that you had some hand clasps. That this seems to be a rest position for you with your hands clasped. Wasn't particularly distracting because you used your hands a fair amount, but don't consider it a rest posture. Use something else. Now, the question again was left-handed, right-handed, or ambidextrous?
I am right-handed. And then can I counter a question? Go ahead.
Go ahead.
What is the best, I would say, just resting? Just because
Well, so generally we would say you would just rest your hands at your side. If you want to gesture, but otherwise, this is one of the most uncomfortable things to do if you're not used to it, to be very honest. You always think of doing it like this, and I will even when somebody else is talking, I will stand over to the side like this, but generally just to your sides unless you got something else to do with your hands. That would be what I would say. And nothing is wrong with a hand clasp as long as you just don't consider it the rest posture and everything you do goes back to it, because that was what I was kind of seeing, that every time you would go back.
Okay, thank you.
And the reason that I asked the left-handed, right-handed versus ambidextrous was I couldn't tell, which is a good thing because you use your left hand, you use your right hand, use both, used them about equally. And that's the goal. Somebody who is right-handed who is always doing this and never touches their left hand, like it's just not even there, that's noticeable. For you, it was not noticeable. Let's see, what do I have next? I have Suleiman. One thing that I noticed when you got up over here, one of the things you did was you pulled up your shorts. Now I'm going to cut you a little bit of slack for that because I do the same thing when I get up here. And I've always said, you really want me not to have them fall down. Trust me, especially when we're putting it on the web. So I'll give you a little slack for that, but it is noticeable. The other thing that you did, and a couple of other people did this, when you're talking, you have a tendency of talking and you'll just take a step back and then you'll take a step forward and then you just take a step back. I didn't actually notice Rob doing it. He may have been doing it, but there's no purpose in doing this. If you were doing it for purpose, it would have been different. If you were trying to make a point and you'd step forward, that would be one thing. And then when you were done, you could maybe step back. But if you're just doing it otherwise, it has no purpose.
So movement should be side to side.
No, no, no. Movement should be purposeful. It should contribute to your message. If a good example, however, of side to side, there's nothing wrong with front to back. But remember, front means you're emphasizing something. Back means it's not as important. Side to side would be, today I did this. Tomorrow I plan to do this. And next week I plan to do this. Time progression, for instance, that would be a great example. The other thing that I noticed a couple of times, again, not to excess. So you watch it and you figure out how often you do it as a rest position. Was it kind of a praying? Now at the time, I think you were talking about backups, and we all pray for backups. So it's hard to say whether or not that was the only reason. Dagan, I also noticed Dagan knew, and you were doing the same sort of thing with the stepping forward and stepping back occasionally. So that was the only thing that I noticed that you did. Lisa, the one thing I would say, you didn't do anything wrong per se, but you did no motion, not really whatsoever. You stood very, very still. So there are times that that's okay. There are times that that's appropriate, but if you want to make a point, using your arms helps. I did kind of notice you looked like you were clenching a little bit, maybe. Maybe it was just maybe clenching the sleeves, I'm not sure. But watch for the hand clenching, keep them relaxed. That's the only thing there. Madeline, the only thing that I saw was a couple of times that you put your hands together in the front, kind of as a rest position. And again, not to excess, but just watch it. If it is something that you find that you do a lot, it really doesn't contribute. So think of something else that maybe you could do that would contribute. And I didn't see you put your hands all the way down. So I think that pretty much concludes my report as posture monitor.
Sorry about that. All right, thank you, Mark. Thank you a lot. I always learn so much from your comments, your evaluation comments. I always hear in your feedback for others, things that I know that I do, that I catch myself doing, or even things that maybe I haven't thought of before. So I thought those were outstanding comments. Thank you. All right, our next up, Lisa, our grammarian. And while you walk up here, I want to thank you for the word of the day, plethora. It brought back so many great memories for me of the hilarious scene in The Three Amigos. Who's seen that? I realize I'm dating myself with the reference, but if you've seen it, you know how funny it is. Yes, El Guapo and Jefe. And if you haven't seen it, I'm not sure I can recommend it or not. To be honest, the movie was made in the mid-'80s, and some humor from the 80s is still great today, and some of it aged really poorly. And to be honest, I really don't know about that. So anyway. All right, well, good. Well, come on up and give us your grammarian's report for this week.
So for the grammarian's report, so for Rob, you used the word useless photos. I thought that was an interesting way to phrase photos. You also used a digital door. I thought that was kind of an interesting way to phrase that. And then you said, I guess your brother, somebody typed up a book. I thought that was a weird way to say that. So for Jessica, you said your husband called you a pretty girl. I thought that was kind of an interesting way to say that, you know, that you're pretty. I thought that was kind of cool. And then they used the phrase stars aligned. I liked that. And then you also, like Mark said, you used the cute in the bushes. I liked that as well. For table topics, A lot of old school words were used, typewriter, carbon paper. The word hack was used a lot. I thought that was kind of interesting. Dagan used the word, back in the day phrase. I liked that a lot. Maddie used that your USB was rolling around in your purse. And then you also used the word skeptical, so I like that word as well. So that's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you. And last but not least, I think we have Karen, our posture monitor. Oh, I'm sorry, you're right, our counter. Thank you.
I'm your counter. And tonight we had a lot of people that used the word so in their talk. Rob used the word so, John Vessels used so, and Suleiman used the word so. Lisa used the word so and had some ums in her report. Maddie used the word so. Mark Sims also used the word so. And Tom, you said okay a few times. That's my report. Back to you, Tom.
Thank you, Karen. Okay, so the next, oh, I did, I said okay. Oh, I guess now that she's no longer accounting, do I get a free pass? Can I, and okay, all that I want? And so, throw a few of those in there. Okay, next up is no, I can't do that. Okay, general evaluators marks. So my first comment is on the logistics. We started about 5 minutes late. And I want to say, first of all, though, it's not a knock against Rob and Mark. In fact, it made me realize how much I appreciated the work that you guys have done all during the pandemic to get the meetings online while we were 100% remote. And now that we're doing these hybrid meetings, I realize it's a challenge and I appreciate you guys going through the work, even though sometimes it winds up being late. Not as late as last week when I was at Toastmaster, and it totally tanked all my content, but we won't go there. Next up, oops, that was an on. Who's gonna ding me or click me? The other thing I wanted to say, I wanted to give out a shout to Rob in your opening comments for the reference to George Carlin. So we can stop the general evaluation there. Any meeting that has both a reference to George Carlin and plethora is the word, is a hit in my book. Rousing success, so thank you. Also, Rob, great topic for the week, backups. Wow, it was a really good refresher for me on a lot of stuff that I hadn't thought of, that I knew, but I had maybe fallen into bad habits. And I think it was good to stimulate discussion on it. So I thought that was a really good topic. Jessica, I wanted to give you a shout out. First of all, thanks for a great intro talk. And then also your content. I really liked some of the stories. I think Mark mentioned this, how you personalized it and so much of the content was personal. And also some of the really colorful stories. The story of, I think it was your husband puking in the bushes. That was a great story, very colorful and memorable. And also, though, I will say, if the story had been about a plethora of puke, that would have put it over the top. If you had gone with the alliteration there. John, excellent job, I thought, as a topic master. I wanted to thank you for the trip down memory lane for the stories about carbon paper. And I also wanted to give you a shout out and thank you for not asking me the question that you gave Suleiman about your first backup media, because my story would have been about using 3.5-inch floppy disks. And I'd have been embarrassed. I'd had the rough choice of either dating myself with telling that story or having to lie and make up something about my first experience was with the cloud. So anyway, what's that? I'm gonna take the fifth on that one. Okay, so that concludes my remarks. So I think at this time we can vote on the best of the big three. Is that right? So topics master, Rob Giles. Our table topics master, John. And the third would be, I think, am I the third of the big three, the general evaluator? Is that right? Okay, thanks very much. So go ahead and take time to vote, and I'm going to pass it back to Rob for business.
Thank you very much, Tom. Appreciate that. Thank you to everyone for coming tonight. I want to go through introducing our guests and having our guests provide an opportunity for our guests, I should say, to tell us a couple of things. One, what brought you here to Toastmasters, including online? And also, what did you think of the meeting? So what brought you here to Toastmasters, and what did you think of our meeting? And I'm going to go through the list, as I think this is how we had people sign up as they came in. And the first person is Milena. Milena, would you please tell us what brought you here and what did you think of the meeting? Please stand up, at least if you want to come up front, that would be great as well.
Hi, so my name is Milena, and I get nervous doing public speaking. So that's the reason I'm here. I have worked in corporate America for a long time, and I've actually spoken at conferences, and even standing here right now, it's like I can feel the blood just rushing out of me. So that's one of the reasons I'm here, is just to get over my nerves. And that's pretty much it.
What did you think of the meeting?
Oh, I thought it was great. I didn't know if everybody was going to do the table topics, so I was like thinking of my own thing, and carbon paper, also in checkbooks.
Yeah.
So, and zip drives. I used to have zip drives back in the day. So, and holding tangible hard drives. What happens if your house burns down? So those were all things that were kind of going in my mind, but I really enjoyed also the critiques that everyone gave. So thought it was good. Yes. Great. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Milena. The next guest is Tyler Madden.
How's it going? Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
I apologize for the background. I have two dogs that are pretty crazy that are running around right now. Sorry about that. So my name is Tyler Madden, and I decided to join today because, of course, like everyone, I want to work on my speech. I've always been kind of a fast talker, as well as I have a little bit of, or I have a stutter, or I'm a person who stutters. So that makes public speaking a little challenging for me. And being in corporate America, I need to speak. And so my main goal would be that I just want to improve my speech so that I can have more confidence at my job. Not that I don't have any, I want more. And I want, to feel confident when I'm speaking and that people are listening and understanding what I'm saying. Because one of the things about having a stutter is I try to hide it, even though I know I shouldn't be. But when I do that, I don't always say what I want to say, or I don't say it how I want to say it. So that's really what I want to work on. And I thought the session today was great, and everyone did a great job, and I was very impressed. And it was very entertaining as well. This is my first time at a Toastmasters meeting, so it was fun. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Tyler. Our next guest is a returning guest, and that is Octavia. Octavia, would you please tell us again what brought you here and what do you think of the meeting? If you could come up front, that would be great as well.
Hi, I'm Octavia. This is my second time coming. I just wanted to try and improve my public speaking because I do stutter. I find myself trying to not stutter because I do talk fast. I try and tell myself to slow down. And also I roll my eyes in the back of my head trying to stop. So it's kind of, in the future, I am going to be talking to a big amount of people, and I want to get better with my communication, be able to make more eye contact. I've noticed I look down because I'm not confident in speaking in public. So I just have just want to improve on that, and that's why I'm here. I love the meeting because I get very good feedback, and that's what I want, and that's what
Thank you. And our last guest is a new guest. I don't believe that she's been here before. And I think, is it Ty? Ty, can you please come on up and tell us what brought you here and what did you think of our meeting?
Hello, I am Ty Grant. Yes, this is my first time being here and it was amazing. I didn't know what to expect because I've never done anything like this before. The reason why I'm here is because I'm not confident myself either, but at the same time, I aspire to be a life coach and I want to be able to talk to big groups of particularly women probably I'm aiming at, I think. And so I think this type of class is good for me to build my confidence and to learn how to articulate myself better, give people more eye contact, control my nerves, because right now I'm nervous as hell, yeah. Well, I'm sorry, I'm nervous. I did love the class overall, though. I love the critiques and everything like that. I love how confident you all seem, but like me, y'all are saying y'all not as confident. So I like that I'm not by myself in that. So thank you.
What did you think of the meeting?
It was great. Yeah, I loved it. Thank you.
So thank you to all of our guests, Tyler as well. I want to tell you, all of you, that you may have avoided table topics earlier, but you just had your first table topics. So take comfort in that. You're already starting to build your confidence. So come back, keep going, don't stop. That's the one thing I would tell people is don't stop, don't take a break. If you absolutely can avoid taking breaks, do it, because that's gonna help you to go, that's gonna help you to grow. So keep that in mind, and I hope to see you guys back here again. You're welcome to come as many times as you want as guests. Eventually, we're really gonna start bugging you and telling you, you gotta join, let's go, let's go. So keep that in mind, and we do really appreciate you being here and appreciate your feedback as well. So the next thing that I want to talk about as far as our business portion of the meeting is what's coming up. And there's something special coming up within 24 hours, less than 24 hours. And that is our division contest. We are, as a club, we're in an area called Area 33, and Area 33 is in a division. And that division is Metro Division. And every year, actually every 6 months, Metro Division has a contest for certain types of speeches. In the fall or in the spring, it's always going to be international speech contest, which is basically, most of the time it's motivational or inspirational speeches. And this is something where people can actually rise to become, eventually, if they win all the way, the world champion of public speaking. And if you look that up on YouTube, I encourage you to do that. Look for World Champion of Public Speaking. You're going to see some great speeches. But tomorrow night, we have our Metro Division contest, and it's going to include international speech contest from all of the contestants from all the areas within Metro Division. And then also, you saw an evaluation from Mark Sims tonight. There's also an evaluation contest taking place tomorrow night as well in the Metro Division contest. And it's people competing, giving evaluations from the same speaker. So you're gonna have a speaker, and each of the evaluators are gonna give their evaluation for that speaker. And that be a contest between them to see who does the best. So you can learn from that as well, and you can get some inspiration and maybe even motivation from the international speech contest. I'm going to send out, and I swear I will, I said that I was going to do this past week, but I am going to, after the meeting tonight, I'm going to send out an email to everybody, and I'll make sure that we get it to our guests as well to join. It's via Zoom, so you can do it from your phone. Join, watch, enjoy. I'll be there participating as a helper, and some of the other people from our area and our division will be helping as well. But it's going to be a great contest. I believe that there's 5 contestants in each of the two contests. So good stuff. Whoever wins from there moves on to our district contests. And then whoever from there can go on to become the world champion of public speaking. So I don't have any other business. I know that we are at the end of our, I guess, for lack of a better term, financial Toastmasters term. Our new term begins tomorrow, April 1st. And I guess I'm going to ask our treasurer, Dagan. Dagan, where do we stand? Do we have outstanding people who have not paid and need to renew? Anybody that we're expecting, I should say.
No, more than.
Okay, all right. For new members, or guests, I should say, who want to become new members, Dagan is the man who can help you out with that. You can also talk to any of our members, especially Mark, myself, John, and we can help to facilitate if you have any questions regarding becoming a member, what the cost is, what's involved beyond what you see in the meeting, and that type of thing. We can help you out with those questions. Okay. I don't have any other business for tonight. If anybody knows of something, John, did I forget something? Oh, yes, of course we do. Of course we do. Madeline is leaving us. She's moving on to some better opportunities. And it's in Colorado, correct? I didn't, yeah, you noticed I didn't say in Toastmasters. And she's still welcome to join us via Zoom as much as she would like. But we hope that she will continue her Toastmasters journey in Colorado. Or again, she could with us through Zoom, but it depends on, everybody has their lives that go on. But at this point, Madeline will be leaving us at this point, and I want to ask everybody, let's give a round of applause for having Madeline with us for as long as we have. We really enjoyed having you with us for the time that we've had you with us. And if you move back here and you want to come back to Ozona, you're always welcome. And hopefully we'll hear from you and find out how you're doing throughout the time.
Definitely, thanks so much, Rob. This is a great experience. So definitely we'll be jumping back.
Excellent. I'm glad to hear that. And really, if you pursue it, you'll eventually reach what you want. You just have to keep going, keep moving. Sometimes it's not pleasant, sometimes it's hard. If you get through those times, you're going to be better for it. So all of us, even experienced Toastmasters, we still have those times where we have to push and keep ourselves going so that we can polish our skills and become better speakers, better leaders, and become more confident. So at this point, I want to call for our, oh, we have one more. Mark? Okay.
I just want to thank the guests who have used our sign-up form. For what it's worth, you're the first people to use the electronic sign-up form rather than the paper one. And I can actually read all of the digits of phone numbers on this one. It is amazing that penmanship has gotten to the point that you can't read 10 digits, much less the email addresses or your last names. But I really appreciate the fact that everybody was willing to use that form tonight, and it does help us out a lot. And it'll make it a lot easier for me to just do cut and paste to get you entered on our guest list. And one other thing regarding your theme. The one thing I'm manic about with regard to backups is my password file. Because if you lose your password file, oh yeah, you can sit there and go reset my password on every one of my 500 plus accounts. And yes, my password file is that big. My password file is on 2 PCs, 2 Linux systems, 1 iPad, 1 iPhone, and I have it on my work PC as well. And my remote backup is on a server somewhere else in the country at work. So that if we ever get hit with that atomic fireball here in Dallas, I can still go get my passwords from some other location, even than Dallas, if my entire house is destroyed. That's the one thing that I'm really manic about. I've always been big on having offsite backups. We talk about backups. I've had a disk backup and 2 of them, and one of them has been in work and one of them has been in home, and they swap back and forth. So that if you ever have a fire or whatever, you've always got the other one. No office anymore. So now I have to just put stuff electronically up there, just load it up. But for what it's worth, yeah, that's the one, the password file is the one thing I'm manic about. That's about the only one. That's it.
Okay, let's go ahead and find out who our best table topics and who our best of the big three were. Dagan.
All right, when it comes to our best table topics, that's gonna be Madeline. And the best of big three, drum roll please. It's going to be Rob Job.
Thank you very much, Dagan. Thank you all. I want to say two more things. Jessica, thank you so much for your speech tonight. We appreciate it. You were our only speaker and you were here despite the conditions that you were going through, the circumstances, I should say, that you were going through. And Mark Sims, thanks so much as well for being here from Washington, D.C. to give that great evaluation for Jessica. I'm sure that she appreciates it. And we all appreciate both of you being here. Tyler, thanks for joining us as well. And Karen as well on Zoom, helping us out through there. Thank you all for being here tonight. At this point, I want to adjourn the meeting. Y'all have a great night and a great week.
One moment, please, while I stop the recording.